I've never been a real science fiction person. I definitely came to Roswell, to this particular project, being more, somebody who had experience in the worlds of sort of character dramas, and that's sort of always been my background and what I've written about and what I've done. So the sci-fi experience was something that was completely new, a little bit daunting to me to jump into. I was sort of interested in finding some kind of sort of like a contemporary story that would have a contemporary love story that would have the sort of Romeo and Juliet stakes. The idea of two people who are in love but can't be together. And I was having trouble finding something because, in this day and age, it's hard to really find a real roadblock to being together. There aren't the Montagues and Capulets so much anymore, and it was sort of hard to find that. But here you had a situation where they were two different life forms, and that seemed to be a real obstacle to the two of them getting together. I had the opportunity to read the book, which was sent to me by an executive at Fox as a potential project. I read the book and I loved it. I just thought this was both a wonderful piece on its own and seemed to have all the ingredients that you want for a series. I mean, it was just great characters and a great situation, and it just seemed to be a great starting point.
In starting the pilot, Jason had put together a first draft of the script and an outline, and I got involved at that point. And then upon doing that, he and I worked very closely on really where the show could go as far as the third and fourth acts of the story. He wrote a great teaser and a great opening act of this thing, and then he and I really got together and really molded the rest of the episode to really make it, I think, what it really became, and really made it this wonderful love story between Liz and Max.
I remember when we did the pilot episode, we had to do so much in the 44 minutes or so that you have to do an episode of television. We had to establish, obviously, all these characters, we had to establish the situation. But I think most of all, I feel like we had to make the audience, take the audience with us on this ride and make them, believe in it and make us feel for these characters. We were shooting and I was, watching David direct and watching a scene between Jason Behr and Shiri Appleby where he told her that he was an alien. And I remember watching that scene, and the way Jason played it, I suddenly believed that this show was going to work, because he just totally owned it. And he was that guy. It was all true, the way he was playing it.
We had a wonderful experience in the pilot. Jason is incredibly talented. He's got this brilliant mind that's always constantly working. You can see him when he's moving on the set, and he's just kind of bouncing around, looking, and constantly thinking. And the characters are so rich, and the ideas and the possibilities are infinite, with the backdrop of being an alternate reality, if you will, of the existence of aliens. That backdrop, coupled with his knack for relationships, and then also with David Nutter's eye, it's been one great experience.
Jason Katims. I remember him from somewhere. That name.
I bow down to that man. I would work for him in a heartbeat. It's just a very nice guy. When you see him, you're just sort of like, wow, that's Jason Katims? You're okay, Mr. Katims, very nice to meet you.
When I read it, what definitely attracted to me was the writing. Jason Katims has a way of writing things in such a realistic and honest voice, something that's not trying to sound 16, but really is really that age and that period in adolescent life, that it wasn't difficult at the audition to feel what he was writing for these characters, because he was writing it so honestly that it was able to play it so honestly. So I think, it's hard to act out a story unless the story's down there on paper, and it was. So I think it definitely was that. And then once we shot the pilot, I mean, David Nutter taught me so much in that, that 12 days. And I'm working with a great cast that are all extremely talented. So, I feel like I got really lucky. Everyone here is really likes going to work and likes working, so it's a really positive experience.
Shiri, she was a sweetheart. She was the sweetheart. I really liked Shiri pretty much from the first day I met her. She was absolute sweetie, very nice, very cute, funny. She always made me laugh. I knew instantly that this is someone that would give me tons of material to make fun of her about and would never really get insulted. Would always take it the way it was intended, was just a joke, in which I encourage it to come back my way. She's probably I had good relationships with everyone on the cast, but she's the one that I've kept in touch with the most.
Colin's unbelievable. The hardest thing was thinking, oh my God, he resembles his father so much. That was the hardest part. And I'm not kidding you, I'd be in the scenes with him and I'd be watching him and all of a sudden I'd see his dad and I'd go, oh my God, this is it. He's going places. This guy's talented. And it wasn't about the image of his dad, it was the similarities. That it was so easy for him.
Katims and Nutter, those are the guys that gave me my career. I mean, without those guys, I would probably still be failing in school at this point. I'd be like an 8-year senior. I think the Roswell audition was like maybe the 9th audition I had ever been on, that first one, which was an awkward audition. Everyone else were like seemed to me like actor types, and here I was wearing a polo shirt buttoned up all the way with, some army pants on and some sneakers. I was definitely the most ugly looking kid in the bunch. The pilot was the first time I'd ever acted for camera. I mean, that scene with me and Mahendra in the cafeteria, that's the first scene I've ever done. I mean, I was like an extra in some stuff before, but that was the first scene where I ever had a line, where I had a mark, where I had to turn in a specific way. When you see Alex the first time, he sort of seems like a bumbling kind of kid. I was nervous.
There's a lot of kids, though, that don't, I find, get very bored with something that's just like all about high school and dating and whether this one and who did this and that. This show covers that, but it also has this whole other world of the FBI, the running away, making life or death decisions. And it's just filled with a lot in 1 week. So it's like a little movie.
It's about three aliens, we can all say that, I think, now, who are really looking for a way home, or at least where they came from. And one of them, played by Jason Behr, Max Evans, he has had a long time crush on Shiri's character, Liz, and something happens, puts her life in danger, and he saves her, and that suddenly jeopardizes the whole, their existence.
Nick Wexler is an idiot, and I hope I never see him again. Kitty. Sorry, Nick. No, Nick played my son, and so in some ways, and we hit it off. Nick and I hit it off kind of instantly when I asked him. I was moving into an apartment and I called him up. Didn't even know this guy, this actor playing my son. And I called him up and asked him if he would come and help me move. And he came over. And after 8 hours of moving boxes, we were still friends.
Isabel actually is getting more and more complex, I think, as the stories go along. But she's basically this girl who puts out an air of being very confident, very strong, almost kind of untouchable and cold in a way. But in reality, she's very, she has a lot of vulnerabilities, obviously, about being an alien and being different. And she just really wants to lead a normal life and be a normal person and feel like she has a place in the world.
How can you not love Katherine Heigl? She's like the sweetest girl in the world. Like, you have to take care of her. You have to protect her like she was your sister. She was just so nice. She, her mom would come to the set every day, and she had her dogs, and she was I loved making her laugh. Making her laugh was like, if I could do that, that would be able to, that would make the day go by faster. Sometimes I just liked making her feel uncomfortable with my dirty language sometimes, but she would just laugh and just go, oh, boys will be boys. She's an old soul in a way.
The alien backdrop serving as, the metaphor for being an outcast and not fitting in. It's kind of good because week to week you see the characters interact just as high schoolers would. You got all the personal interactions, which I think is very interesting, and then you add to that us on our own little journey, trying to find out where we come from along with their help. I think it makes for very exciting television because you got those two aspects. They're separate, but at the same time, they kind of mesh into each other.
Brendan was the mysterious Canuck for me. He was brought in from Canada. He was a very nice guy. I automatically liked him because he was from Canada, and so ultimately I had someone to talk hockey with.
I hope you intend to pay for that.
I do not.
Well, then that's theft, buddy.
Arrest me.
Brendan just has, like Michael, an edge to him. He says what he thinks. He's not going to beat around the bush. At times, you love him for it. At times, you don't. But that's who he is, and I think that it was perfect for Michael.
I remember at the read-through for the pilot, he needed a ride from the production offices to a wedding downtown, and he had no ride. So, hey, dude, I'll give you a ride. So I gave him a ride, and here I am with this guy I'm about to make a pilot with, and he's from Canada, and he's wearing a cowboy hat. He was great because, look, I like Metallica. I don't love Metallica, but he did, and you can't get mad for him. I mean, listen, when he would blast Metallica at like 7:30 in the morning, you want to yell at the guy, but ultimately you can't because he's like a huge fan.
Since the pilot, Max has sort of come out of his shell a little more than he was ever able to. He's experienced a little more of what life has to offer. His relationship with Liz has progressed some, and not without consequence. But and I think also that the three aliens, Max, Isabel, and Michael, have come closer and closer to finding out the truth about their past.
Jason Behr was the character of Max. He is handsome and sexy as all get out. Fans loved him.
I just remember being extremely awed by his biceps. He's a very strong young lad.
When we were shooting the pilot, Mahandra Delfino came up to me one day, who plays Maria, and she said to me, listen, I just want to let you know, if the show gets picked up and we start doing episodes, if you're going to ever give Maria a boyfriend, just don't have it be Brendan, okay? Anybody you want, but not Brendan. She didn't want to be going out with Brendan. I don't know exactly why, but I knew when she said that I was going to put the two of them together. Because immediately when an actor says that, you think, okay, something's there. And of course, it was, and they had it in spades, and they were just so delightful together.
Michael and Maria, which I thought was one of the sexiest, hottest couples on TV. I really did. Once I did Heat Wave with those guys, I mean, literally, we would roll that camera, and these guys would get so into it that I would forget to cut. It was like they would just go at it, and it was like you could hear a pin drop. We weren't in the room with them, obviously, and you can see it on film. There was nobody else there but those two. And you talk about connecting, a chemistry, wherever they're from, it came out. And Jason was so right. When he heard Mahandra say, I never want to do a scene with Brendan, he's a jerk. He said, don't hook me up with him in the series. And Jason said, yeah, I'm going to hook him up. And he hooked him up. Boy, was he right. He was so right.
When we were filming 285 South, every time we were filming it, and I got to turn the key and the trap door pops open and we're filling with rocks and we go in this dome, we just felt like we were filming the Goonies. Like these kids on a treasure hunt searching for all this stuff. And it was really a lot of fun, and I think it was fun filming I think it's going to be even a lot more fun to watch it.
Roswell was always shot in and around Los Angeles. You know, we had always thought, when I did the research for the show before we shot, I went to Roswell, New Mexico, and spent a few days there and got a sense of that world. But the realities of production didn't allow us to go to New Mexico and shoot, so we had to sort of find New Mexico in Los Angeles.
We looked all over LA trying to find, we knew that we needed a town that would be ours, kind of like our second back lot. We used a little bit of the back lot at Paramount, their New York Street and other parts for certain things that we needed to shoot, but we really needed the hometown. It was going to be our Roswell.
We shot in the town of Covina, which is out in the San Gabriel Valley. And believe it or not, even though it is within the zone, the shooting zone in Los Angeles, it had never been shot in before. And it was, it's like small town USA.
The main drag of that town has really survived intact from, well before the Second World War. A lot of the buildings are from the 1880s, 1890s. Two-story brick facades.
They had never allowed any franchising in the town. It had a wonderful main street that became the main street of Roswell.
It was just perfect for us because it had just the right scale. It had the width of the street. The people were very friendly. They were happy to have us there. They were, the town was just really accommodating. We found an exterior brick building cafe.
That was a working cafe, but they let us put up the huge flying saucer that had crashed into the building, which was the exterior of the crash down.
And so we had that permanently installed, and we were able to kind of reface the front of the lower part to match our set on stage.
So if you watch the show, if we were outside the crash down cafe, we would be in Covina. And then basically if they walked in, we would then cut inside and we would actually be shooting at Paramount.
The entire pilot was shot on location because you don't build sets for a pilot because you don't know if it's going to be picked up. And once the series was picked up, we had to, we built both the school, we built the crash down. The rest of the locations were generally places that we went out to.
It was always fun to work in there because they would pull the walls out. You never knew which wall they were going to fly out to bring the cameras in. It was sort of the heart of the show. Everything came and went through there. I have fond memories of the Crash Down Cafe. Food was awful, as I recall. It's terrible, really terrible.
I think that the Crashdown Cafe, it just really worked on all levels. It worked as a shooting space. It worked as a practical shooting space. It was visually interesting. It seemed to reinforce the themes of the show all in one place. It had this feeling of country. It had kind of a small town, country feel with the overlay of the science fiction, and space themes. It just shot well. The colors were vibrant, but you believed them. They didn't seem unbelievable. One of my favorite things in the whole show was the fact that we went out into thrift stores and just bought thrift store paintings, and then we dropped them all off at this artist that we hired in the valley and just gave her, free rein, and she just put alien themes into each of them. So if it was a Spanish galleon on the high seas, she put a saucer in the sky above shooting a beam of light down onto the ship. We just tried to do it in terms of if someone, as I said, didn't have a lot of resources but was very creative, how would you come up? So the idea, we stenciled wallpaper that had aliens in it. It was a graphic, and it was just done with cutouts, and spray paint. And then there was a big mural that goes behind all the booths there, and that I drew that and designed it. And there we had three. Again, that was kind of campy. It would look like three alien teenagers coming up out of a crashed, spaceship. That was one place we were allowed to be campy because the people creating the show really felt strongly that it had to be grounded, and we tried to keep the rest of it, at least that if you don't have some grounding, then you can't, any sense of threat or emotional involvement is really dulled if you don't feel like there's some consequences. So the show that really could have gone, if it wasn't kept, if the lid wasn't kept on that part, it could really go off in that very campy way, which would have diminished it, I think.
Hi, welcome to the Crash Down. Can I show you to a table?
Table, yes. Table would be lovely. Jen, table? Yeah, thanks. Great.
I think that I mean, there were lots of other sets that I liked, but I think that set was just worked out well.
Are you okay?
Of course I'm okay. Don't I seem okay?
Well, you just shortchanged her $10.
Oh my God.
A UFO museum became an important center. The city fathers there had a closed-down bank building
that they let us build the exterior to.
And permanently leave our UFO museum facade up, so whenever we needed to shoot, we could go back there, because the thing that distinguishes television shooting from, doing a movie, things change very fast. I mean, you may need, something can come up in the morning, and you're trying to solve that problem by noon, and you've got to come up with a physical, solution by the next day. So you really need to have these standing sets that you can just kind of, put up a few things, add the lights on, and be ready to shoot it again. So Covina was just perfect.
That particular set was really interesting because it was all smoke and mirrors. There was really no actual set. It was a lot, if you look around, if you ever look at that set, everything is, there's like curtains between exhibits. And it was kind of like the Wizard of Oz. What was behind the curtains was just, like the wall of the set. So it was made to look like this big, expansive museum, but it was really just a lot, it was like it was basically rearranging set design and set dressing. It was really very, very, very smart.
The UFO Center was the most, that was just plain bizarre. That was a Hollywood version of what actually exists in Roswell, New Mexico. And the difference is that the Hollywood version is huge and vast and filled with these really glossy, cool, cheesy pictures and models and what have you. And the actual UFO museums are smaller and don't have air conditioning and they're very cheesy. Or can be, not all of them. I don't want to get hate mail from them.
Actually, I went with David Nutter to go to the actual Roswell, and we actually based the idea of the UFO museum on an actual, venue there that someone had. There's a kind of a dedicated space there.
Hollywood has a tendency to polish things up, When you get in a huge squadron of set designers working on your thing, it doesn't have to be made out of tin foil. It can be made out of, stainless steel.
They wanted to kind of keep you guessing. The people that in Roswell, well, we don't really know, but, I can't say for sure that aliens landed here, but a lot of strange things have happened. So when we, we did our version of that, a kind of a heightened version, and, it was halfway between, Ripley's, believe it or not, and a kind of a natural history museum. So we did dioramas, but there was also the, kind of research library and all kinds of displays. And it was just a great place visually. You could go anywhere with it, and it was fun.
This was a show that wasn't done for no money, but it was not a huge budget. It was a small show, and I was always sort of proud of and thankful for the work that people did. Our producers and directors and location managers, because it really, we really were able to get a lot of good production value and sell New Mexico, and we, never went more than, 30 or 40 miles from LA.
I myself saw the pilot of Roswell and wanted to work on this show. I was convinced that Jason Katims had written something that was really special, that had it touched everybody, and the fan base of the show was everyone from preteens to grandmothers.
We got the sense that the audience was very present to us, and that was something that was, at times trying, but for 95% of the time, a great thing.
Action. All of a sudden, you realized, okay, I'm absolutely being worn to the nub, day in, day out. I'm tired, I'm cranky, the work days are long, things aren't going well. Why are we doing this? And without sounding too dramatic, you would just, or at least me, privately to myself, I just go, Oh, well, the fans, I mean, they like it.
After, 7 or 8 episodes had aired or something like that, one of the assistants, in the office, said to me, there are all these fans of the show and they're on the web and, they're creating websites. And I said, what are you talking about? And I came and I looked and it was like unbelievable.
You'd say one thing on a talk show and next thing you know, I got a fan sending me, thousands of Hershey kisses because I think I was complaining I didn't get a kiss. Or, all of a sudden there's a Blood Brother website that's dedicated to me. I mean, it was just like the craziest thing. I still have all the quilts. I've got all the pillows, the binders, all that stuff. I still have it, and I thank you for it. I'm going to hold on to that till the day that I die, because it was just an unbelievably surreal experience. All of a sudden, having fans, that normally are sort of like removed, but when we'd go to places like Covina, they'd be there.
4 o'clock in the morning, we could be shooting in the middle of Covina in the rain, and I would look over and there would be 100 fans who had driven from as far away as Arizona. And it was wonderful. They were a wonderful group of people, and their dedication to the show really, I think, was an inspiration to all of us.
The fans are, I think, responsible largely for the show having as long of a life as it did. I mean, I think that toward the end of the first year, the show was in a lot of trouble.
I am convinced that the reason that we stayed on the air for 3 years was because of the fans. Year one, the fans sent everybody who had anything to do with Roswell or wrote about Roswell little miniature bottles of Tabasco, which is something that the aliens drank all the time.
It was thousands and thousands. It was like this amazing quantity of Tabasco sauce and letters and emails. It was like, I mean, you'd think they were contemplating the execution of, the Pope or something. It was like, you can't imagine.
Made the network think that, if there are fans out there that love the show that much, there must be others too that haven't seen the show yet that would love it. And I think it really helped them to get over the hump to pick up the show for a second season.
They got us a second season. They're the reason why the show lasted as long as it did. They're the reason why the show, got the second season. I think they're the reason why the show even lasted a first.
Very motivated group of fans we have for this show.
We touched a lot of people as far as the heart and soul and the longing and the secrets and the love and the romance, as well as the isolationism, what these kids are going through. And I think a lot of people experience all those feelings. And to me, they watched Roswell and they saw either themselves in these sensibilities or tones or characters, or they saw things they wanted to have in their own life.
One of the great things that they've done is they've raised lots of money for all different kinds of charities over the years.
They would come through me and ask for certain pieces of wardrobe that they would auction off. And I remember from Blood Brothers that Max's scrubs went for something like $8,000. And it was all money that went to charity, really, wonderful charities. And the actors always turned out for these events. I'd have never seen fans do something like that.
To this day, I still get a lot of people coming up to me about Roswell, which is always very charitable. Because like I said, looking back on it, I look at it as an actor and I just go like, wow, okay, but it's nice to know that people actually that people enjoyed it, people liked it, and they were just, they were fantastic. They were the reason why I, was able to work as long as I did.
I hope that this DVD is a love letter to the fans, because I think that they contributed so much to this series, and I think made it something that we will see forever. I think, my grandchildren will somehow see this series, and it's a love letter back to them, and I think it's a love letter to everyone who was involved in the show. I think I'm really excited about it.
Come back.